Man, I need to practice my balance.
I started by gathering some wood that I'd gotten from a pallet that I'd already taken apart. These boards are already de-nailed and ready to go. Here I'm just laying everything out, trying to select the boards that are most straight. I had a general idea of the width that I wanted the balance board to be. And as you can see here, there were gaps in the wood when they were placed together, so everything wasn't square. So I needed to trim the edges off so that they would match, because I needed to do a glue up and I needed a nice seam there. So here I'm just trimming off the edges to make sure the boards are nice and square. And boom, nice and straight. For the design of the board, I was inspired by this piece I have hanging on the wall. Here I'm just using some of the scrap cutoffs to try to get a general idea of how it all would look. I really didn't want the balance board to be any thicker than the pallet boards that I already have right here. So I was trying to come up with a way that I could cut off pieces of it and make it into a decorative top without adding any thickness. So I came up with this where I'm just cutting down all the boards into 2-inch strips, because my blade only extends up 2 inches. And then once I have all these, now I can bring it back over to the table saw and put it on its side and then cut off a thin veneer that will allow me to, make the decorative top that I want. So I have everything cut up now, ready to go. And that's going to be the base, and this will be the wood I use for the decorative top. But as I mentioned, I cut them into 2-inch strips. I didn't want them that thick, so I'm just going to actually cut all these down the middle into 1-inch strips. And I just think it'll give it a better look for the board. Now I have all the pieces of the board cut up, ready to go. My next step is to glue all the pieces of the base together. So I'm just going to throw them in some pipe clamps here and let these things sit overnight. Alright, so it's the next day. I'm ready to take this sucker out of the clamps and see what I got. Everything's looking good. Top's nice and smooth, bottom's looking good. It has a little bit of glue squeeze out, so I'm just using the scraper just to knock down some of the bigger portions before I take my sander to it. Here I'm using my orbital sander with 80 grit sandpaper. I'm just, hitting it a little bit. I don't want to take off all the finish because I still want it to have that, aged palette look. Alright, so now I have everything nice and clean. Now I want to start adding my strips to the top of the board. And here I'm just kind of getting a general idea of where I want things laid out. I didn't really go into it with a plan, I was just going to wing it. So at this point I have just a square board. And I knew I wanted to round the edges just to give it more of a skateboard look. The reason why I didn't add the strips to it with it being square and then cut it down, because I was a little worried that I wouldn't have enough strips. So I figured if I went ahead and cut off the excess right now, that would leave me a little bit of wiggle room just in case I messed up one of the strips. So here I'm just laying out the first piece, and once I get this one attached, everything else will play off of this one. Instead of worrying about cutting perfect angles to match the edge of the board before I attached it, I was just going ahead and attaching each piece and then going back and just cutting the excess off. It made it really easy and super quick. So here's the board before I cut the excess edges off. And I actually really liked it like this. I thought about leaving it. It looks like shark teeth or something, but nah, I figured I would smooth the edges. So I'm just using the jigsaw and trimming the edges off super quick. Now I'm just going over the top and edges with 80 grit sandpaper just to clean it up and smooth it out a bit. And here I'm adding, I guess what you could call bumpers to the bottom of the board. It'll have one on each end, and what it will do is just keep the board from, when you rock back and forth, it'll keep the board from flying off of the pipe. And all I did was use an extra piece of pallet wood. I traced the profile of the board on each end, and now I'm just cutting it out with a jigsaw. And even though I don't show it, I do this to both ends of the board. And now it's logo time. And to finish things off, I'm just using some spray lacquer. All right, so I just finished up the balance board project made out of pallet wood, and I'm really liking it. I just tested it out, and I have two different pipes to balance on. I have this 3-inch pipe, which came in a 2-foot section, and a 4-inch, which is just a coupling, and it's about 3 inches across. I initially wanted the 4-inch just because I knew it would be a little harder to balance on, and I wanted the challenge. You know, the balance board can go back and forth, and it's really stable this way. You just have to balance this way. But with this 4-inch coupling, I'm really having to work both ways, front to back and side to side, to stay up, which I really like this. I mean, I could really feel it in my legs immediately. As soon as I stood up, I could just feel my legs tense up. My knees were already kind of aching, so it's just really good exercise. And that's the thing about these balance boards is you don't have to be a skater, or surfer, or wakeboarder, or stand-up paddle, or whatever. It's just good exercise. It's good for your legs. It's good for your core. And it's just really fun, you know, because I know as we tend to start getting older, we quit doing the things that you used to do as a kid, which required you to run around and balance, or maybe walk across a limb in a tree and to not fall. So you start to lose a little bit of that balance. So this is just really good to maintain that, and it just feels really good, and it's fun. It's like a fun little activity. Just kind of challenge yourself, see if you can time yourself, see how long you can go before you let one of the ends touch. As far as what I made, mine's 10 inches by 41 inches, and you can make this, customize it any way that you want. There's all kinds of variations. I know I looked it up online, and the whole reason I made one of these was because they're super expensive. I know to buy like the name brand one, which I forget the name of it actually, but I mean, it was like $300 for the advanced version, and all it came with the board and then one of these rollers, and 300 bucks. I made this for pallet wood free, and this coupling was, I think, $3, and I think this 3-inch piece was $6, so barely nothing. And I added this is actually grip tape strips that you usually would put on, you know, stairs for safety. They had it at the hardware store, so I just bought it, and it really helps because I tried it without it and it's slick, so the board just wants to slide off. So that really helps keep you on there. So I recommend that. But anyway, so you can change this up all kinds of ways. I wanted mine long so it really felt like a skateboard or surfboard, but you can make it a lot shorter or a lot wider depending on your ability and your skill. And as far as the bottoms, you know, I added these bumpers at the ends just so that when it rocked all the way to the maximum, you know, lean, and it hit the pipe, it wouldn't just jet off, it would kind of actually stop it. So that's why I added those to the bottom. It's almost at 3/4. So as far as thickness, this is almost at 3/4, and with the length I made, and when I extend my legs all the way out, it does flex a little bit, but at no point does it feel like it's going to snap. So I mean, this is probably the minimum thickness that I could have used for my, you know, height and weight and everything, and it not feel like it would just snap in half. So this is you know, 3/4 is probably the minimum you would need to go, I would say, at this length. Obviously, the smaller you make it, you probably go a little thinner because your feet are closer together and there's not as much flex over the pipe. So that shouldn't be really an issue. But oh, and another thing, I just did a random pattern on top, but it actually matches comes close to matching the wall art that I have behind me. So not only is it a fun thing to use, but when I'm done with it, I just put it over there, hanging up on the wall beside that other wall art. And I think it just looks cool hanging on the wall like that. All right, so that's it for this project. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little project. It was fun to do. And even if you're not into, you know, making something, you know, to balance on or whatever, this is just a general kind of maybe guideline to do pallet wood art as well. So maybe you got something out of it. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys watching. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to me when you hit like, or you share my videos, or you leave a comment. I always enjoy that, you know, reading what you guys have to say. So thank you very much for that. If you haven't, please go check out my Instagram and Facebook page and maybe hit a follow over there. I'd really appreciate it. I guess until next time, see you guys later. I feel it, you know, in my legs, super tight. Super tight, super tight, super tight.